Yes, so the next one, and this is the last presentation before our break. South Lee County Watershed Hydrological Model Tool. This is from Marcelo Lago, and Marcelo is going to be giving us a presentation. And the purpose is to provide an overview of the South Lee County Watershed Hydrological Model Tool that is a science-based, data-driven, integrated surface groundwater hydrological model that is capable of simulating both dry and wet season water levels and flow. And this was also as relates to the hydrological restoration priorities, and specifically the objectives of one, conducting data collection, modeling, analysis, historical, current, and projected hydrological conditions of the identify the needs of the guide and hydrological restoration. Without any further ado, Marcelo, take it away.
Thank you, Ernesto. Yes, this presentation is about the South Lee County Watershed Initiative Hydrology Project, and we had a great team, consulting team to conduct this project, led by Lago Consulting and Services, and having the key role of Water Science Associates, and also the Southwest Engineering and Design and Church Environmental. Next slide, please. The project is near the end, and this presentation is about the task 10, which is modeling future condition scenarios. And we also have delivered the final draft report for review. And as part of the presentation, I'm not sure if there would be another presentation, but this is one of the last one, if it's not the last. Next. And this slide is to show the model development in the future condition scenario evaluation. We started from the existing condition baseline model that was a modified version from the calibrated model. And in that version, we added recent developments. We added Lee County stormwater master plan projects and other future recent and future projects. And by doing that, we ended with a model version that we label as existing condition version with projects. And in that model, we added climate change and sea level rise and future potable water supply extraction to end with the model version that we label as future condition model or baseline or FCM0. And from there, we tried 3 different land use changes scenarios that contain the case of maximum restoration, maximum development, and an intermediate case also. Next. The projects included in the existing condition were basically recent developments, recent urban developments that were not included in the calibrated model. We also include 5 of the higher priority Lee County stormwater master plan projects that are listed there, and other 2 future projects. One problem that we had when we include especially the Lee County stormwater projects was that we were noticing negative impacts in wetlands. And remember, these projects were focused, so the evaluation of this project was focused on the on flooding conditions. So and this project was more focused on seasonal variations and wetland hydroperiods and things like that. So we had to refine some control elevations, some proposed structures in order to remove those negative impacts in wetlands. Next. This is how the hydroperiod maps looks like from the existing condition baseline and from the existing condition with projects. There are a slight difference that we will going to discuss in the next slides. But you can see here, so the hydroperiod, remember, is the number of days with the water ponded on the ground. And in this case, you have, in the scale, you have this purple color that will have water ponded for 10 months or more, according to the model. Or you may have the white areas that are hydroperiod less than half month. Next. This is another map that was produced from the model. In this case, it's the wet season mean water depth. And these maps are correlated with the hydroperiod. So if you have more or less water depth in the wet season, you will have longer or shorter hydroperiod also. So they are correlated. Next. This is the difference map. So we basically, what we did is that we subtracted the map that we got from the existing condition with project minus the existing condition baseline, so that way we can see better the difference or the effect of the projects introduced. And one of the projects considered a small inflow from the Blackstone Preserve in Lehigh Acres at the northern part of the model, and that inflow caused the changes in hydroperiod. So the green color that you're seeing there, which means higher hydroperiod in that area and in the areas downstream of that. And we see here also other changes in urban development that we introduce in the model and certainly that we will discuss in more detail next. Yes, this is assuming the northern part of the model, and here again is the hydroperiod difference map. We have the inflow from the Blackstone Preserve that I was mentioning, and you can see the increase in hydroperiod that would cause inside edge of the Lee County Port Authority, and also around the mining pits that are located downstream. And that effect would probably goes up to the slough areas around Wild Blue development. In this map, you can also see the effect that the place is causing in the hydroperiods. In this case, you can see that the hydroperiods are shorter inside the development and also north of the development, and this is a consequence that the place restored the historical flow path in the area, and that is not, so the fact that there are shorter hydroperiod is not necessarily bad. So the optimum hydroperiod is something that an ecologist will determine from the vegetation, so from the marks in the vegetation in the wetland areas, and the purpose of the hydrologic restoration is to get as close as possible to those optimum hydroperiods, and that can be longer hydroperiod or shorter hydroperiod that they are in the current time. Next. This is again the hydroperiod difference map, but assuming in the southern part of the model. Here you can see a berm that is proposed in two of the Lee County stormwater master plan projects. Because of this berm and the contour structure that are proposed, we can see an increase in hydroperiods at Hierarchical Preserve and also in the headwaters of Kill Canal. This map also shows a purple line that is the Big Rockery Swamp Trail, and one of the projects that we included is proposing to retain some water upstream of the trail, the North Trail, and as a consequence of that, you can see an increase in hydroperiod north of the Big Rockery Swamp Trail and also on the eastern side. Next. This project was not intended to evaluate the impact in flood stages during extreme rainfall events. However, we did this brief analysis by using the model predicted peak stages during Hurricane Irma back in 2017. And we selected 5 locations, typically around the I-75. And the last column that you see in the table is the difference in peak stages between the existing condition model with projects and the existing condition model baseline. Of course, if it is a flood mitigation project, what we want typically is that after the project is established, you have less decrease in peak stages, which is what you see in the first row and in the third row there. However, there was a place, the second row, which is the south branch of Estero River, where we saw a slight increase, and this would require further analysis and project refinements. And in the last row, you can see there a slight increase also in the upstream of the Kill Canal weir structure, but in this case, since the berm is intended to retain water during extreme flood events, that might be okay. So that might be the berm doing its work. Next. In the case of the sea level rise, we basically went to the NOAA web page and we put there an intermediate height scenario with a low accretion rate, and that gave us a 1.64 feet increase by year 2050. And we used that in the model. So in the model, we have tidal boundary conditions near the coast. And what we did is that we applied that offset to the tidal boundary conditions in order to simulate the sea level rise. Next. The climate change will also include changes in temperature, in rainfall, and potential evapotranspiration. And to estimate those changes by year 2050, what we did is that we use the climate change tool by DHI. And we basically, for that, we specify the center of the model domain and other parameters. And we got the factors that you can see in the table shown in the slide. So basically the tools give you for each month what would be the variation of precipitation, potential evaporation, and also in temperature. And if you look at the last column, you will see the annual change that the tool is proposing. Basically, in precipitation, by year 2050, the tool is saying that we will have a decrease in about 10% in precipitation. In potential evapotranspiration, we will have an increase of about 6.3% annual basis. And this is because the temperature will increase in about 3 degrees Fahrenheit. The 6% in potential evapotranspiration is reasonable. However, the decrease in 10% in annual rainfall is an extreme case or a scenario. So the literature reports plus minus 10% range in variation, in rainfall variations. So there is really lack of consensus. And what we did for this project is that we use the same rainfall as in the baseline existing modulation model. So we did not change the rainfall. Next. This table shows the water budgets from different models. The first table, the table on top, is the annual water budget, and the second table is the wet season water budgets. In both tables, if you go to the last column, which is the difference between the FCM0, which is the model with the climate change, minus the model without the climate change, you can notice an increase in actual evapotranspiration by about 5%. That would result in an increase in river flows by about between 10% in the wet season and 14% in annual average. So, but that is telling us that it would be a drier climate with higher evapotranspiration and therefore lower river outflows to the bay. Next. This is how the hydroperiod difference map and the wet season water depth maps looks like when you compare the model with climate change and without climate change. Near the coast, of course, you have an increase in water depths and hydroperiod because of the sea level rise, but inland you have a decrease in hydroperiods of up to 1 month. So all those natural areas that we know, the Corpus Swamp, the Flint Pen strand, would be drier, and the hydroperiod would be lower in about up to 1 month. And in the case of the water depths, the wet season water depths, the decrease can be up to, the predicted decrease can be up to 4.4 feet. Next. This is assuming near the coast, and the 1.6 increase in tidal water levels may result in future vegetation changes along the coastal boundary. And the fact of having the sea level rise plus a reduced river outflows may have negative impacts on the freshwater resources near the coast by year 2050. Next. In the case of the land use change scenarios, these are this map present the change in each scenario. So the first map has the more blue, which is the restored lands that we propose in that scenario. In the second map correspond to the case of maximum development. Remember, in that scale, the developed lands, the last change to develop are put in basically in red color. And the last map correspond to an intermediate scenario. Next. And these are two different maps. The first map is the maximum restoration scenario minus the baseline, the sim0. And you can see there two areas. They were basically agricultural lands that were assumed restored, but they have been approved now for development, either for residential or development or mining. At that time, the permitting was uncertain. In the case of the second map, it represents the difference between the scenario of maximum development minus the future condition baseline, and you can see a variety of effect from that scenario, the land use changes in that scenario. Typically, when you see the red, which is less hydroperiod, is because that area was urbanized, so you have higher ground levels, you have a drainage system in place that would keep the area drier. But that water that you remove from that area might create longer hydroperiod in adjacent areas, which is the case of the Flint Plain Strand portion area that you can see there with the arrow, purple arrow, that basically is receiving water from urban areas, adjacent urban areas, and then they may show higher, longer hydroperiod. Next. For recommendation, the specific recommendation from this project are related to gray and green infrastructures. In the case of gray infrastructure, we propose to create additional storage at the stored and developed areas and at mining pits. The water can be routed to a storage area during the wet season with subsequent release during the later part of the wet season to offset the predicted hydroperiod changes from drier conditions. And that also will help to offset flooding impacts since extreme weather events are predicted to be more frequent, resulting from climate change in the future. In the case of green infrastructure, we propose to create additional storage and restore hydroperiod in existing wetlands. The corkscrew mitigation bank is an example of a green infrastructure. And we propose new cross berms across natural areas, natural wetlands and sloughs, and also new weirs and gated structure at creeks and rivers. Next. To be more specific about where to build structures and berms, we made the map that you can see on the left. And in that map, we put existing structure and their control elevations in red. And you cannot see well because of the resolution, but that map can be zoom in and for a better look. And we also put in the map proposed structure and cross berm and the control elevation in blue. These proposed control structures are very preliminary and will require more detailed evaluations. But once they are in place, we can operate the gates as the district has been doing for many years now, by establishing seasonal rules with lower control elevation during most of the wet season, and then having emergency protocol operations before forecasted rainfall storm. In terms of the future modeling, the matching model developed in this study can be kept as a living tool with frequent updates and verifications, and that will serve to evaluate scenarios to enhance flood protection as well as wetland hydroperiods. And one thing that we would like to do once there is more certainty in the future rainfall prediction, we would like to rerun. We think it's a good idea to redo the climate change scenario by using the those more certain rainfall prediction. And I think this is the last slide.
Great. Thank you so much, Marcelo. This has been wonderful. Appreciate immensely. If anybody has any questions, we're right at the lunch break, but
Well, we have
no pressure.
Well, I think it's important, Nicole, maybe you could outline the public commenting period that's underway and where they can find the draft report to weigh in on that.
Absolutely. Actually, I will put this in the chat as well. But so the draft report is up on the CHNEP website, along with all of the technical memos that were created to support this document on the South Lee County Watershed Initiative page on the CHNEP website. I'm going to put the link in the chat. And we ask that all public comments on the draft report, and again, we're seeking comments with regards to the conclusions, recommendations, any potential future projects or preservation initiatives that could be identified in this report, be included in those comments. The modeling work is complete, so it's mostly to address recommendations in the report, but we're asking that those be turned in writing to CHNEP at chnep.org by close of business December 13th. The finalized report will be made available in January, and that's when all of those additional comments will be considered and added into the report. So again, I'll put that in the chat, but we appreciate everyone's participation so far and all of the members of the South Lee County Watershed Initiative, Lago Consulting, WSA, and a lot of the people that built this. We hope that this will provide a really great toolkit for guiding restoration and preservation in the future in this area to better address the natural systems needs. So thank you again, Marcelo.
Thank you, guys.
This is Roger Kopp from Water Science Associates. I wanted to comment very briefly on one of the last slides where we showed a number of projects that could address some of the hydroperiod concerns. Yes, that particular slide. We feel that these are areas where we can capture more water on the landscape, which can have multiple purposes of reducing downstream flooding and augmenting hydroperiods should these climate change should climate change as indicated in our simulations. And we think that this can offset those impacts such that the wetlands don't experience reduced hydroperiods, which would be beneficial for habitat protection, would be beneficial for public water supply, for flood control. And we can implement these in places where it doesn't have a substantial negative impact, but actually could improve access to some really great natural resource areas.
All right. Does anybody have any other questions? We have a few more minutes to wrap this last presentation.